For a long time, I've always wanted to have some sort of outlet where I could review video games, or a way I could remember exactly how I felt when playing a certain game. There are so many games I played, whether I was younger or more recently, that I absolutely love and want to remember forever. And even though it's easy for everyone to remember most of their favorite games of all time, it's also a little sad to know that there are so many great games I played in the past that will eventually fade into lost memories as time goes on. But what if there was a way I could remember every game I've ever played? About a year ago, I saw a video by Daryl Talks Games titled, How I Finished My Gaming Backlog 1 Year Later. In the video, Daryl talks about the trials and tribulations of his own game log and how the process went for him. If you haven't seen it before, I suggest watching the video or at least checking out his channel. The way he combines psychology and gaming is pretty cool. So when I did come across this game log video, I immediately started crafting my own game log for the purpose of tracking everything I could this year. So I'm going to take you back through my own experience with my game log, starting all the way back in January of this year. I'm going to show you what I did, what I learned throughout the experience, about the process and my own gaming habits, and finally, and maybe the only thing that really matters, what were the best games that I played this year? There's just no way this is a real game. There's no way. So obviously I made a game log, but what exactly did I track? There were a few things that I wanted to be sure that I included in my game log. The first of which was a time tracker. I wanted to be able to input the amount of hours I played in each game, as well as the start date and completion date, so I could see how long certain games took for me to beat. I also wanted to have a wish list section for games. Whenever I saw or heard about a game that I wanted to play, I'd simply write it down under the backlog section so that whenever I wanted, I'd have a library of games that I knew already sounded interesting to me. The last thing I wanted to include was a section of place notes and score games, not only on my totally unbiased and objective scale, but also just so I could note exactly what I felt while playing the game. Whether it was frustration at certain game mechanics or emotions when the story was really hitting deep, I wanted to record as much as I possibly could without it feeling inorganic. Ultimately, I decided on using 5 separate categories that I would all score out of 5.
Visuals! Soundtrack. Gameplay. Innovation. Feel.
So with all this in mind, how did I organize it all? Well, I opened up the only useful application I kind of know how to use, shout out business classes, and I got to work. Okay, so to be honest, I wasn't really sure exactly what to expect when tracking this sort of stuff, but I was actually pretty surprised at some of the numbers that I found. For example, I ended up playing about 300 hours of games this year. Okay, I played 300 hours of new games this year. I didn't want to track these games because they're kind of staples of my gaming routine. I play Rocket League every year.
I get that smart ass, but...
I play Valorant or CSGO every year.
He's a dream! Help me! Please!
I felt like these type of games would clutter the game log, so I decided not to track them and instead focus on the new experiences I had this year. So, over the course of this year, I had averages of 2.6 new games played per month, 0.88 hours played of new games per day, and additionally, I played a total of 31 new games this year and completed 17 out of the 19 quote-unquote beatable games that I did play. The few games I didn't finish, I'll likely pick them back up in the future, but this year I tried not to force myself to complete some games when sometimes I really just wasn't feeling it. I was pretty happy with my completion rate of my games played this year, though not even counting my hours spent on Valorant and Rocket League, I ended up spending about 3.6% of my life this year playing new video games.
So chat, today I'm going to be touching grass.
When looking back at all the games that I played this year, I noticed a few cool trends. First of all, I didn't actually realize that I kinda like horror games. I'm a total wuss when it comes to playing anything scary, but I ended up playing 7 horror games this year. I 100% get the appeal of social horror games, where you play with friends and it's kinda funny to be scared, like playing Lethal Company for the first time. But this aside, I actually played some individual horror games. I also found myself being very drawn to intense story or puzzle games where I had to think about the story being told. Obviously everyone loves a good story, but when running through my scores on various games, I always gave the game a consistently higher score if I remembered being forced to engage with the story on my own terms. And yes, I think it's pretty obvious to say that better story equals better game, but at times there were games that had well-developed stories that I just didn't personally connect with. The final thing that I found interesting when looking back at this year were the quote-unquote dead spots in my gaming calendar. For example, I only played 3 new games and logged 20 hours of new gameplay throughout the months of February through April, which equates to about 13 minutes per day. Yes, I was busy in the real world, but I think it's important to understand that sometimes there were just times where I didn't really want a new experience. Sometimes I want to rage queue Valorant for hours on end, or play Rocket League for 32 days straight, and that's okay.
Take it, bro, please. I hate you so fucking much, bro.
All in all, there are a ton of different trends or things that I could pick out from this data, but really at the end of the day, I think this is just something that you should try out for yourself. I loved looking back at all the good games and even the shitty games that I played this year. In a way, it was pretty cool. Like, I'll remember playing fucking Operation Tango because it was on this spreadsheet. And in a way, that's kinda sick. And it's not like you have to do it the same way that I did. Just kinda mess around and do whatever's fun. You don't even have to do it with video games. Try tracking the books you read, or the movies you watch, or even the songs you listen to. Everyone loves their Spotify Wrapped anyway, so why not go ahead and make one for yourself? You get the point I'm trying to make, but I did track these games for a reason, so I might as well cut the boring stuff and show you my 10 favorite games that I played this year. As a huge fan of Smash, my biggest gripe is the online matchmaking, which prevents me from actually having fun when I play. Rivals of Aether 2, on the other hand, has great online play. It gives a similar experience in ways to Smash Melee, but it's easier for beginners like me to feel like they're picking up on some of the mechanics and learning the high-speed gameplay without having to be as precise as you do in Melee. The game controls very well, the art style is sick, and the skins are dope. But this game also possesses the ability to piss me off like no other. Don't get me wrong, the highs are amazing, and when you catch people in combos, it genuinely feels like some of the most fun I've ever felt while playing a platform fighter. But holy shit, if I get hit 3 times in a row on Zetterburn, I feel like I might as well put my controller down because I'm absolute combo food for 30 seconds straight. And I am simply not good enough at fighting games, nor do I have the patience to be any better than the average player. So when I lose a few games in a row, it starts to feel a bit like rock, paper, scissors, because I have to choose between my hand, my wall, or my controller being broken by the end of a session. Abzu is a game about the fishes. Nah, I'm just kidding. Abzu is a game about the shark. This is my RPG story scale. Knuckle's Sandwich places itself firmly on this side of the scale. Safe to say, if you enjoy titles like Undertale or Earthbound, you will enjoy Knuckle's Sandwich. Though clearly inspired from games like those, this game sets itself apart through its unique personality and cast, as well as its battling system, which is definitely the best part of the entire game. When in battle, you play a series of WarioWare-like games to defend attacks, which is super cool and ensures that battles are never boring. The art for this game is also awesome. I love how there really aren't many games that have a similar style to this one, and I absolutely love the creative direction taken by this game, both in how it looks and also the soundtrack. I mean, damn, this game has some bangers. With all this said, however, in my opinion, it's incredibly hindered by its story. I'm a sucker for powerful stories, and games like OMORI and Mother 3 are some of my favorites of all time. and although Knuckle Sandwich is very fun and quirky, its biggest weakness to me is a lack of purpose or cohesive story. There is no overarching sense of purpose, and the ending is a little bit confusing and underwhelming. Now, I will admit, I think that by comparing it to all of these other amazing RPGs, I hindered my playthrough a little bit as I was trying to force the game to be something that it's really not. But all in all, Knuckle Sandwich is absolutely worth a try if you enjoyed some of the RPGs that I mentioned before. When the original Hades came out, it was instantly one of my favorite games. Seeing Greek lore in video games is so sick, and Hades did it so well. The amount of time I spent learning about the characters and trying to get Zagreus to his mother was something I didn't think I could bring myself to do all over again, because I typically don't fall in love with hack and slash gameplay. But Hades 2 proved me wrong. Although it feels very similar to Hades in certain ways, and to me, the gameplay can feel repetitive at times, there's just so much new shit to explore that is genuinely impressive. The visuals are just as stunning as the original, the story is even better in my opinion, and I love what they did with the characters in this game once again. The way they continued the storyline from the first game in such a cool way, and how they've developed the lore behind each character from the previous game and introduced new characters into the world, hands down some of the coolest shit I've ever seen in a video game. Like I said, I'm not really a fan of hack and slash gameplay, so the fact that Hades 2 even made it to number 7 on my list is kinda wild to me. But this game is incredibly well made, and if you've played the original Hades and liked it, then this one is a must play, and there's really not more for me to say. If you would have told me that a poker-themed, roguelike deck builder would have been one of my favorite games that I played this year, and arguably my favorite game that released in 2024, there's no way I would have believed you. But Balatro completely defied my expectations. The gameplay is very straightforward and easy to learn. There's only one song on the soundtrack, the graphics are not groundbreaking, but everything this game does is damn near perfect. Yes, the gameplay is simple, but there are a near endless amount of combinations you can play due to the vast amount of Joker cards and power-ups found in the game. Each run, although realistically is pretty much always the same, feels so different because you have to constantly adapt to the cards that you're dealt and try to develop your deck on the fly as you progress through the antes. Each time you beat a game with the deck, the game adds optional debuffs that make the journey harder once again, so you can either add the debuff or switch to a different deck that gives you different starting buffs. This game is so cool because it really appeals to every type of player. If you're a collector, then trying out all of the decks and looking for every single Joker card is perfect for you. If you're competitive, then trying to complete decks all the way to the hardest gold debuff is what you'll love. And if you're a total nerd, then try and get the highest possible score you can get on one hand. Hell, there's even an achievement for shit like that. Balatro makes seemingly repetitive gameplay unique enough to keep dragging me back and wanting to play more, and it's the only game this year that I keep coming back to whenever I'm bored. The gameplay is really addicting. So yeah, it's safe to say that I'm all in on Balatro. Yeah, this guy fucking sucks. Before Your Eyes doesn't feel like a video game. Its only gameplay mechanic is blinking and moving your mouse. Your story begins after your death, as you wake up on a boat where a wolf has fished you out of a river of souls. He's taking you to the gatekeeper who guards the entrance to the afterlife. If the gatekeeper is impressed with your life story, then you will be granted entry into the afterlife. So, you go back to the very beginning of your life and relive the moments of your story that make you, you. The game does a great job of capturing seemingly meaningless moments and making you want to stay there forever, because you know you will never get them back. Playing in the bathtub, or your mother playing the piano when you're a child. These little moments that everyone experiences are made so significant, and they are truly gone in the blink of an eye. I'm not going to get into spoilers, but this game feels so real, and it really made me think about times in my life that may have seemed so insignificant at the time, but looking back, they meant the world. Everyone wants to be special or remembered by others, but Before Your Eyes reminded me that no matter what you do or accomplish in your life, none of it matters if you don't have people that you love to share each and every moment with. This game seriously made me think and reflect far beyond its own message, and I'd be lying if I didn't tell you I cried at the end. Considering this is only about a 2-hour game, it not only shows that I'm a total pussy, But it also shows how good this game is because of the genuine impact its story had on me in such a short time. A story that I will truly never forget. I've always enjoyed most of the Paper Mario series, so I can't believe it took me this long to play what is widely regarded as the best of the series, the Thousand Year Door. For a game that released in 2004, it's pretty unreal how good this game is. The game establishes its own fun tone while still having this grand sense of adventure. The dialogue is so engaging and the gameplay is really creative and fun. Although the game is very lighthearted, I love that there's a true sense of purpose and everything you do relates back to your ultimate goal of opening the Thousand Year Door. You need 7 stars to do so, and the journey to collect each star feels like 7 different mini-stories that are all so different, yet all great. While long, the story is not repetitive, and it's impressive that I was as engaged as I was for a game that took me around 25 hours to complete. The soundtrack is amazing as well, as most Nintendo games are. The only downside that I could really think of are in general the fights and overall difficulty. Although the game always felt engaging, the turn-based combat system could get boring at times, especially when it's really the only form of fighting throughout the entire 25-hour story. With this said though, I liked how the stats weren't busted, and though simple, the gameplay wasn't always easy. Overall, the best part of this game is the unique personality that every character brings to the story. Everyone has their own unique introduction to Mario, and they each have their own abilities to help throughout the story, and moments where they're allowed to shine. I could go on for several minutes about how Kid Yoshi and Admiral Bobbery are some of the greatest characters to ever grace the entire Mario franchise, but that's a video for another day. This, coupled with the creative dialogue, results in the clear best entry to the Paper Mario series, and, in my opinion, one of the best Mario games ever made. Listen, there's not really much I can say about Baldur's Gate that hasn't already been said. I've never really played D&D, but I've always thought it was cool, and Baldur's Gate was the perfect introduction for me to the D&D universe. I got to be this cool-ass dragon monk dude, it was pretty awesome. One run of this game can take upwards of 60 to 70 hours to complete, and in my case, I wasn't even set on doing everything there is to do. If you want a full review on this game, there are a million people more qualified to give one than I am. Just know that I spent about 40 hours trying to get with Shadowheart, and it was absolutely worth it. Return of the Obra Dinn is a game set in the 1800s, where you're an insurance inspector tasked with investigating a ship called the Obra Dinn, one that set sail in 1803 and was lost at sea for years until washing up later. Your goal is to determine the fates of everyone on board and uncover the true story of what happened. You're only given a crew manifest and a special compass, which allows you to see the moment of someone's death when used on their corpse, and your journey begins in the captain's quarters. Each time you investigate a corpse, you're given the audio of the situation and a freeze frame at the time of the death that you are investigating. Using these clues is how you will piece together the full picture, and thus, the brilliance of Obra Dinn begins. What makes this game so special is not its plot, its graphics, or its characters. In fact, we know very little about the characters in general throughout the entire game. Their motivations, beliefs, backgrounds are all, for the most part, kept a secret. But that doesn't matter. Where this game truly shines is in the details of each death of each character. Every clue left behind is so subtle, and it's up to you to recognize them and use deductive reasoning to solve each mystery. The best way I can describe the gameplay of Obra Dinn is by thinking of it as a 300-piece puzzle, where the player is slowly given 1,000 mini pieces that can all fit to make the puzzle work, but not every player will catch every piece. It's up to the player to identify each mini piece of evidence and determine what makes the most sense for them to actually solve the puzzle. This is so cool because it really means that every player will have a different experience, and the crew members that I had trouble identifying won't necessarily be the same ones that you have trouble with. This game is full of little aha moments, and it's incredibly satisfying when you're able to deduce the identities of the people on the ship. Here's a prime example of that.
Oh, wait, there was 3 people there, right?
Wait, who? Oh my gosh, who? Okay, hold on. This guy? Oh my god, wait, I think I figured it out. By not having crazy good graphics or an overly emotional narrative, you're purely focused on making nonlinear connections between characters, and you really do feel like a detective as you make progress through the ship's log. Return of the Obra Dinn is a game you should go into as blind as possible, and it truly is a one-of-a-kind experience. Although Return of the Obra Dinn would likely be my favorite game I've played most other years, it's only number 2 because Outer Wilds is one of, if not, my favorite game of all time. Outer Wilds is an open-world exploration game where you take on the role of an astronaut in a solar system that has, for whatever reason, been trapped in a 22-minute time loop. You have a few goals in the game, but none are explicitly stated. Why are you, in particular, stuck in the time loop? What caused the death of an ancient alien race called the Nomai? And what exactly were the Nomai trying to do? By exploring different planets, piecing together scattered clues, and learning the different rules of the universe, you slowly uncover the true story behind what's really going on. The way you uncover these secrets, however, is one of the reasons why this game is so good. There are no levels, and there is no rush to discover anything. You're simply a creature that exists in a small part of a gigantic universe. Gravity works how it would in space, the flow of time does not stop, and each planet has its own quirks that progress with time throughout each loop. The only way to progress through this game is by gaining knowledge, and this knowledge is left on each planet in the form of old texts left from the Nomai that you can read with your translator. These pieces of text don't directly reveal anything, however. They are a mix of the Nomai's internal thoughts, discoveries, and personal conversations with one another, and only by slowly connecting together the evidence that's hidden within these pieces of text are you able to gain the knowledge you need to lead you to your next clue. Where Obra Dinn gives you an organized manifest, Outer Wilds gives you a fucking yarn board of clues, and you're the one in charge of stringing it all together. At times, I felt too dumb to solve parts of the story, but pushing through led to perhaps my favorite moments I've ever experienced while gaming, period. It reminded me how certain stories can truly only be told through video games. The attention to detail that this game has is simply unmatched, and it, along with the curiosity of your own mind, combine to culminate into one of the best gaming experiences of all time. I spent hours trying to find one word to describe Outer Wilds. Perfect didn't feel right, as I don't think anyone can really make a perfect game. Impactful or groundbreaking seemed too cliche, but at 4:06 in the morning, I thought about the word art. And as I reflected more, I realized that every game I played this year is its own piece of art. I could try to explain why one game resonates with me more than another, or why certain games can even bring me to tears. But would anyone outside of me really get it? I can think a video game is just as beautiful as the most impactful movie or painting, but to others, the same video game is simply a waste of time. By saying each game is art, am I just attempting to justify my own countless hours spent playing? I can say that my time spent writing these notes matter, or the scores that I assign to a game define its worth. But is it just my way of finding meaning in the time I've invested, or giving myself a sense of purpose when in reality I'm just looking at pixels on a screen? I think the truth is there's no right answer. I could explain for hours why doing a game log is worth your time, or why certain games are the best to me. But in the end, even if you play the games I recommend, your experience won't be the same as mine. Art will always be subjective, and shaped by our own perspective. And I think this year, through all the games I played and notes I took, maybe the subjective feelings we all have are what really make art, art. And that's pretty cool.